Hey guys, today's video is going to be different than most of my others. I'm going to be going over some tips for players who want to get better at Fortnite or new players who want to learn something to help improve their game. Many of you guys are probably wondering why you should trust my tips, so I'd like to give some of my stats to hopefully gain some credibility. This season I'm averaging over a 5 kill death ratio. That is in the top 26,000 players on Xbox out of the 5.2 million total players. I really don't go hard for wins because I enjoy high kill games, but my win percentage is still around 14%, which is in the top 4% of players. I'm going to split my tips up into two categories. The first category will be the pre-game and the early game, and my second category will be overall combat and how to win gunfights. Starting out with pre-game and early game, the first thing I would like to talk about is where you choose to drop. This is obviously very important because it sets the foundation for the rest of that match. I see that there are three different ways to play Fortnite. The first way is to go for wins. The second way is to go for high kill games. And the third way is to just drop and get in as many gunfights as possible so that you can improve your skills in combat. Let's start with where you should drop if you're looking for wins. You want to drop somewhere with less competition, but still decent loot. The goal is to get in as few gunfights as possible in the early game, but still be ready for the late game. So you want to drop somewhere more obscure and more spread out. A good example of this is the northeast corner. There are many groups of small houses and small areas where there are farms and small huts and things. It normally has decent loot, probably 6 or 7 chests, and you'll probably only have to engage with 1 or 2 people and have full control. After that, you should proceed wherever the storm is at and shouldn't really engage anyone else until there are less than 30 people remaining in the game. Another spot I like to go if I'm looking for wins is down around Moisty, landing on the edge of Moisty and then continuing into prison, controlling prison and then continuing on to where the storm is, like I said. Next, we're going to talk about where you should drop if you're looking for a high kill game. I recommend dropping at the first large city that the bus goes over. This means avoiding tilted in most cases. A good example of this would be if the bus is traveling from northwest to southeast, I would probably drop at Pleasant. If the bus is going from southwest to northeast, I would probably drop in Greasy Grove. You're looking for somewhere big with lots of people, but not overwhelming like tilted. The reason tilted is not good for a high kill game is because of the randomness and luck that it involves. There are lots of people around corners and up on top of buildings that you just can't predict. There are too many places to watch. Most of the time you'll end up dying by someone that you didn't know was there and that you really didn't have a whole lot of control over. The last way to play Fortnite is just when you're looking to improve your gun skill in firefights. If you're going to do this, I do recommend dropping tilted towers. Like I said earlier, there are lots of people and lots of opportunities to engage in combat. Because of all the enemies, you're going to have to juggle different combat situations, sometimes between multiple people. It's very fast paced and it will help you in your future when things slow down. It's a great way to prepare if you're looking to become a better player as fast as possible. So now that you've selected where you're going to drop, we will be talking about how you're going to drop. I see many people all over the place making the mistake of dropping too high. This may not seem like a big deal, and it isn't really when you're dropping somewhere more obscure. But if you're dropping somewhere big like Pleasant Park, Greasy Grove, Salty Springs, Retail Row, you want to get down as fast as possible and reach the loot as fast as possible and possibly get kills before everyone else arrives. The way Fortnite's drop system works is you will deploy your glider at a set distance above the ground that you're over. So let's use for example that your glider deploys 1,000 feet above whatever terrain is below you. This means that if you're above a mountain, that is let's say 1,000 feet tall, and the glider deploys at 1,000 feet above the terrain below you, then your glider will then deploy it, for example, 2,000 feet. So you want to find valleys or roads at the lowest point that you know. This knowledge comes with playing the game a lot, but good places to drop are places with lakes, roads, rivers, etc. You will see an example here. When I'm going in a drop, the bus is going from south to north, and I'm going to Pleasant Park. I choose the valleys on either side of the mountain. And yes, it restricts where I can choose to go, but it's definitely worth it because I get to the loot before anyone else does. The next pregame step is collecting materials. This is critical. As you'll hear from me more, building is vital. You can't build without materials. I've tried to leave my first area with around 400 wood. Here are the best trees in the game. Normally you get around 30 wood per tree, and you can take a tree down in 3 hits if you hit one of the blue circles. Another good way to collect materials is to hit all the furniture, cabinets, sofas, and stuff while you're in the houses looting. This adds up way faster than I realized previously, and I do it all the time now while I'm looting. The next recommendation I struggle with all the time, and that is placing your traps in the early game. It's really beneficial for you to place your traps around the houses that you're looting and shut the doors behind you so that if someone walks in, it's a free kill or severely injures them. And if it is a kill, that's a lot more loot that you can go pick up that took no work from you and puts you in zero danger. And the last recommendation I have is to get as many ammo crates as you can. Definitely don't go out of your way to find a bunch of ammo crates because that's normally not worth your time. One of my buddies, Black and Gold 93, if you watch our streams, was an ammo crate stickler. He would go into every house and find every single ammo crate he could. And I'm definitely not as crazy as him, but I do definitely look out for them now, and it really helps me later in the game. It'll give you heavy ammo for snipers when you find them, rockets for when you find an explosive weapon, and definitely some extra medium ammo to spare when you get in those gunfights that last for a while. It is very beneficial to find those ammo crates. I definitely recommend finding out where they are in each house, because normally they spawn in pretty much the same places, and there are 2 or 3 in most houses. Now I'm going to transition into the next part of the video about combat. The first subject under the combat category is the high ground. Having the high ground in Fortnite is critical. It gives you the advantage of cover, especially in the case of explosives. High ground gives you complete control of the fight and makes it much easier for you to flee if you are in trouble. It is much easier to shoot down on opponents than to shoot up at them. And all this really means is that you should control mountains and hills as much as possible, especially if you're going to build a base and chill out for a while. Make sure you're doing it on top of a mountain. If you choose to do it in a valley, people can still shoot down on you, and the view from your fort is more restricted. A great way to get the high ground is to build. Building in Fortnite is an absolute must. You will not be successful in Fortnite if you do not build. I see people all the time thinking that this is player-unknown battlegrounds or something. It's not. As soon as you are shot, you should build where the fire is coming from. This levels the playing field. You now both have cover, and in most cases, it is now an even fight. This is one of the reasons I really enjoy Fortnite. It takes a lot of the luck of people sneaking up on you or sitting in a bush out of the equation. Building is a great way to stop unlucky deaths that are hard to control. Not only is it good for this though, building can also help you get the high ground, as I said. As soon as you see someone in another base or another fort that is not paying attention, you should begin to build up on them. This does take some skill mastering buttons or keys on how to build quickly, but as soon as you can get above someone, you now have a major advantage. As you can see in this clip here, I push this guy until he peeks from his fort. As soon as he peeks, I start building and go on defense. But as soon as he has to reload, I begin my build up on top of him, even though he's many stories higher than me. As soon as I reach the top of him, he decides to drop out of his fort, which was probably all he could do. But from then on, I took over his fort, and he was an easy kill. This leads into another mistake I see a lot of new players make, and that is being too passive. A lot of times it is advantageous to push people and catch them off guard, instead of sitting in 2 different forts and having a shoot off. It is always better to be offensive. You want to be putting pressure on the opponent, not spamming the build button from behind cover. As soon as you see a clear point in combat, you should probably go and push. The longer you're in a fight, the more noise you make, and the more players that are attracted to that location. Before you know it, you'll have attracted 3 other players from around the area that you now have to engage also. This reduces your chance of survival and makes it much harder for you to continue during that game. You should try to finish kills as quickly as possible, collect their loot, and move on, rather than engaging for extended periods of time. Although you should be aggressive, that does not mean you should push everyone all the time. You're bound to get yourself killed doing that. You must value your life. If you're in a losing battle, stop fighting it. Flee and heal so you can live to fight another day, and possibly re-engage later. My next tip for combat, and Fortnite in general, is to value what benefits you most in your inventory. If you know you're not very skilled with a sniper rifle, don't take it. If you know you're going to be playing very aggressively, take as many meds as you can and just keep an assault rifle and a shotgun, as you see I'm doing in this clip. If you know you're going to be playing very passively and aren't going to be getting in many fights, maybe take 4 weapons and only 1 spot for healing supplies. It all depends on your playstyle and how you plan on engaging that game. Some last quick general tips I have are to go into your settings and turn on reset building choice. This makes it so that every time you hit B to build, your walls will be equipped. This definitely helps so that you can spam walls when you're being shot from behind or from the side. It makes it so that you don't have to think as much about what you're doing. Also, make sure you're playing on the Combat Pro settings and play with your sensitivities to figure out what suits you best. Normally the default settings are not ideal. Currently I play on 6 for horizontal and vertical. All these things I stated previously will help improve your game, but you can't really be great unless you have good gun skill, building skill, and combat instincts. And these can't really be explained in a video. So I recommend, if you're really serious, you try dropping tilted towers a lot and possibly play some games of solo squad to overwhelm yourself in combat. It may be frustrating at the time, but it will definitely help you in the long run. If you have any other suggestions for new players or players that are struggling, put them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Till next time.